Hey everybody, welcome back to the Thursday evening financial thing live stream. Thanks for joining us. We got a lot to get through tonight. We'll be talking about some peer-to-peer lending stuff. We're going to be talking about some cryptocurrency things, what's going on in the economy, more information out there about why you want to be paying attention to Bitcoin and kind of ignoring some of the news that's coming out, some of the negative news. But I think I hop on this Bitcoin stuff a lot because I think it's so important for you to understand what is going on in the general macro economy and macroeconomics, and the reason why you want to be paying attention to this. It's not just fairy dust investment tools. This is something that should be paid attention to. We're going to cover a little bit of that. Welcome to everybody here in the stream. If you can hit that thumbs up for me, I appreciate that very much. Again, we have a ton to get through tonight, so we'll do a quick hello to everybody in the stream. Annabelle Nyron is first in Spain. Hola, ¿cómo está? Philip Walters in Milton Keynes, Double D. Dave Dawson in sunny Staffordshire. Alan in sunny Basingstoke. Paul is in Kenilworth. Susan Williams in sunny Southport. Southport is sunny, that's amazing. Alan Lomas in Chesterfield. Carl in Perry in the beautiful Peak District. What a great place to live. Stephen Green in sunny Southport too. So we have two people in sunny Southport. I wonder if you two know each other, Stephen and Suzanne. Stephen Hale in Nottingham. Mark Mason from Surrey. Hi Mark, nice to see you. Aki Chak is here from Accrington. John Morgan in sunny Swindon. And Brian from Woburn says hi. Hi Brian, welcome to the stream. Debbie from Mixed Media Arts in the wicked Caribbean in the Grand Cayman. And Mike Powell is here from Southampton, of course. Jackie Honor is here and Paul New in Stockport. So we will say hello to other people as they come on board. John Alsop in Tamworth in Staffordshire. So welcome to everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're going to do a little loan pad update. I think it's been a couple of weeks and I still see their loan book continuing to grow slowly and steadily, which I love. I never like to see a company just making huge leaps when it comes to peer-to-peer. The loan pad has just grown incrementally and sensibly, which I think is the main thing, because again, we have to really watch out for companies that are taking massive strides. And one company that I'm going to talk about tonight that I see maybe making a stride like that, which I don't know is a good thing or not. But Loanpad has been very, very slow and steady. So we've seen from my last update, £28.8 million was their loan book, is now 32.2 million. They've increased their loan book by 10 loans from the last time I did the update, which was 78 loans up to 88 loans, and average loan book security of 70.6 million. So they've got a loan to value of just 42%, which again is keeping it a nice low level. Only one default. Sorry about the itchy nose. I have no idea what's going on today. I think it's allergies or hay fever. So we have one default, £150,000 default that is being taken care of. Again, very small default. And 8 extended loans, none of which are being covered by the interest coverage fund, which is the provision fund, and average loan size of just £365,000. So one thing too, their interest coverage fund, which is £40,000, that's LoanPad's provision fund, has slightly reduced. I think it was at £24,000 last time I checked, and it's gone down to £21,000. So that means the coverage fund has been replenished by £4,000, which again, really, really positive things that we're seeing from LoanPad. You're not going to get the greatest interest rates in the world from them, but you are going to get those fundamentally sound numbers, which I think is an important thing. So quick shout out to the sponsor of the stream. Here's Kuflink. As you know, has been sponsoring the stream for a while. We really appreciate them for doing that because this we got to generate revenue somehow, right? So if you are interested in signing up with Kuflink, you can do so and get up to $4,000 in cash back. I mean, this is a big deal. £4,000 in cash back on your first investments if you have not invested in Kuflink before. Terms and conditions apply and your capital is at risk. Remember that it's not covered by the FSCS. And you can go to join.kuflink.com livestream.com/financial-thing to sign up. If you can do that, it supports me and the stream and what we're doing over here at Financial Thing. So also, if you have questions or comments, pop them down. We'll do a Q&A at the end if you have any things that are concerning you or that you want to know. Oh, look, we had the Financial Thing t-shirt on today too, by the way. What else is going on in the news today? Oh, LoanPad also put out an update email a couple of weeks ago, which I just wanted to read because I thought it was a really great update. So we wanted to give you a brief update on progress over the last few months, which we believe has been extremely positive. On the business side, we recently completed a substantial equity fundraising, and that's increased the strength of their capital base, provides LoanPad with significant flexibility for ongoing product development. In addition, they remain fully on course to reach operational break-even through quarter two and quarter three of 2021. So that means the business is now in a very strong position to manage continued growth, with the idea of becoming profitable within 12 months, which is a good thing. And on the lending side, the loan portfolio has continued to grow impressively month on month. As of the time of writing, investors' funds are now over £32.5 million and diversified across 83 loans with an average loan-to-value of just 42%, which is what we did with our update. And we expect diversification to continue to grow and anticipate passing 100 live loans in the near future. Most importantly, we are highly confident in the credit quality of each and every loan, and we do not foresee any material issues arising. Our very cautious lending structure allows, and hopefully, our investors to sleep easily at night. We have a number of new lending partners in the pipeline, and we hope to be in a position to onboard at least some of them over the next few months. June promises to be an exciting month with a large pipeline of potential loans, and that's a really great update. I love to see updates like that from these companies being in constant communication with their investors and with potential future investors. And especially, we've had this rocky road with peer-to-peer lending over the last couple of years, so it's important for these companies to really keep us abreast of what's going on. And yeah, good news for LoanPad. Thumbs up to them. To another news story that mentioned about transparency was Kuflink. We're talking about what's important in peer-to-peer lending. I'll show you this. This was a news story. What do investors want to see and hear from a peer-to-peer lending platform? Narinder Kaur from Kuflink explains they want to know what their primary concerns are. What are the likely returns? How safe is the money? How long is the money tied up for? And transparency is important. Again, some peer-to-peer companies are not particularly good at being transparent. We've seen it in the past. They don't communicate well, especially when there's a crisis. We saw it during the COVID, when things really started to hit the fan, that some of the peer-to-peer companies were not in great communication with their investors, and that made people nervous. And that's one reason I think people started to run for the exits, because of that lack of communication. So transparency is important. Transparency of what's going on behind the doors of the business, the operational side of things financially, how much of the company is winning or losing, how much profit they're making. And by the way, one of the things I really highly suggest is if you're investing through a peer-to-peer lending company, go to a company's house and just take a look at their accounts every year and see how much money they're profiting or losing. And then the other thing is regular communication. We all want to communicate good news, but the best investment companies must be seen to be consistent. It's all well and good to report things that are positive, but investors need to know what's going on a regular basis, so that also means negative. Most will appreciate that not all businesses will be performing optimally all of the time, particularly through the pandemic, but now is not the time to shy away. Investors don't want to be left in the dark. So very important that we are communicated with if we are investing through these peer-to-peer lending companies. And again, some companies do that better than others. LoanPad has been good with communications. One of my favorite companies who I think communicates probably better than anyone else is Kuflink, and also Blend Network, who they send out reports every month, market reports and what's going on. I love to read that kind of thing. I love to see what's going on behind the closed doors of Blend Network. So let's see what else is in the news. Number of directors. Let's see here. Let's close this one out. Oh, this is interesting. Kuflink releases a IFISA wrap around some select invest deals. So a lot of people have. That's been one of the cons of Kuflink, is that if you wanted to use an ISA wrapper, you would have to be invested in their auto lend product. Well, they've heard these complaints, and I think they're trying to address that issue now. Obviously, showing here that some of the loans are going to be eligible to be used in the IFISA wrapper, so some of the self-select tools. And I eventually believe that you'll eventually be able to invest probably all of your self-select deals through a wrapper, which is, I think, what most people want. They want to be able to choose their own deals, because there are some negatives in Kuflink's auto lend product. So that's a really big deal. So they're working on a separated wallet to enable people to do that. And they're also working on upgrading their proprietary deal risk and pricing tool in their CRM system. So Kuflink is very, very big at looking at risk. And one of the things I've had good conversations with Kuflink's chief technical officer is how they really evaluate loans, and they come up with these risk criterias to evaluate whether they're going to lend money on a deal or not. So they're very, very much into developing that and making it better. So that's what they are doing. They said Kuflink is working with a RICS chartered surveyor, valuer, and a seasoned developer to further enhance the risk tool sensitivity to such events, aims to connect this information to its live loans on its platform to provide a timeline of any given loan's risk. So again, very important stuff. We do want to understand how much risk we're taking when we're investing in these self-select loans. So Kuflink is making strides to do that. Let's see what else we have here. Number of company directors that have been disqualified by the insolvency service has dropped by 24% year on year, but could set to increase due to state-backed loan fraud. We've seen it again. We don't want to point out any names, but we've definitely seen some direct loan fraud in the finance space. So this is really just a way to kind of crack down on this, although I think it's always going to be a problem. As directors, have financial misconduct. So, the FCA doesn't really do a great job of necessarily overseeing when there's problems in these within these financial companies, and a lot of the times I don't think the FCA really knows. So things can go on behind closed doors. This was a bit of a disappointing piece of news this week. Assets Capital delays new lending due to oversupply of cash in access accounts. I think this all goes back to the CBILS lending that they took on. There's only so many people to process these loans, these CBILS loans, which of course us retail peer-to-peer lenders cannot invest through. These are all government-backed loans. Now, when you do an application processing for a CBILS loan, it's not fast. It's a very slow process, and God knows how many of these applications that they're having to really deal with and go through. So I think that what's happening is you're getting peer-to-peer lending is coming back. Investors are depositing money into the access accounts. But since Assets is not lending putting any new retail loans out at the moment, this money is just getting backed up, and now all the cash is in the access account. So they're going to start sending it back to people. And here's the reason. This is what Assets says. We have needed to prioritize our efforts to process the CBILS application before the deadline to ensure that borrowers receive the financial support needed to keep moving during the pandemic. The platform said access accounts are now overfunded, so any new money coming in will not be automatically invested and will not earn any interest. Yeah, again, just backed up. They don't have enough capacity to handle all of these CBRS loan applications, so they're putting the retail things on hold for now. Kind of disappointing, not what I would like to have seen, but it is what it is. LendInvest unveils third securitization worth £280 million. So what they're doing is packaging loans up and then selling them to investors. This shows you LendInvest how big they're really getting now at this point. And to be honest, I fully expect that eventually LendInvest will stop its retail investing. I just have that feeling. I don't think that they're going to continue to do that. I think that they're going to turn institutional, probably interested in much bigger loan deals in the future. And retail investing is very, very, it comes with a lot of problems though, dealing with each individual customer. And on the one side, you've got the buy-to-let mortgage loans that they deal with, so they have to deal with the borrower. And then you got to deal on the other side with the retail investors who are investing money into these loans. It's a lot of moving parts you have to deal with. So dealing with the one or two institutions to buy loans makes a lot more sense for a company as big as LendInvest. We'll see if my prediction's true. We've seen it happen with some of the other big peer-to-peer lending companies like RateSetter, completely turned institutional, Funding Circle. And eventually, I believe LendInvest will follow the same path. See what else. Peer-to-peer investors demanding inquiry into supervision of funding, secure, and lending. I think this is a great thing. The action groups have called for a public inquiry into the FCA's supervision of these collapsed peer-to-peer lending platforms of lending and funding secure. Absolutely needed. Why this has not been done already, I'm really not sure. A lot of misinformation, a lot of mismanagement that's happened with those companies. According to the Times, the Funding Secure Action Group has accused the FCA of apparently atrocious lack of supervision of the industry, and said a public inquiry is needed into the purported lack of supervision demonstrated by the FCA in regards to both lending and Funding Secure. Now, here's the thing about the FCA. If they're not going to protect investors properly, really, then what is the point in the FCA? What is the point in this regulation? You can have all the regulation in the world, but if it doesn't protect investors when things go down the pan, what is the point? And we hear this a lot with cryptocurrency. Well, it needs to be regulated. It needs to be regulated. But what does regulation really provide if the regulators itself are not providing protection to consumers? We'll see if that one ends up going through. I really hope that does. I think it's important. More news from Assets Capital. They are considering loans worth hundreds of millions of pounds. I don't know if this is just all CBILS or future government-backed lending, or if this is retail, but it says we're currently receiving hundreds of millions of pounds worth of loan applications from house builders who are gearing up to capitalize on these market dynamics. Again, we're probably going to see a big increase in housing prices, and there's going to be a lot of developments going on in 2021 and 22. Stuart Law has predicted that house prices will continue to grow by up to 10% for 2021 and 22, but could stabilize once there is more supply. And there was a news story about BlackRock, the huge company that is the investment side, buying up tons and tons of real estate and houses because they understand that the lack of property supply is so low, they can just pour all their money into houses and then flip them for an increase. We've seen some pretty big increases in pricing in the US. And this is going to happen, I think, in the UK. We're going to see that property values are going to rise a lot. We saw it in the UK, it went up 9.5%. As buyers rushed to beat the stamp duty deadline before the end of June. So yeah, I think you'll continue to see those house prices rise, and hopefully assets will get back to some normal retail lending soon. Stuart has said that he does want to continue to support retail peer-to-peer lending. We'll see if that's true. I hope it is. FCA extends temporary registration regime for crypto asset firms. They're still trying to figure out how to process these applications for firms that want to be able to sell cryptocurrency to retail investors. So they've got this temporary registration regime for firms that applied for registration before the 16th of January 2020, and they're still processing and assessing those applications. I think they're treading very, very carefully with cryptocurrency because FCA is under enough fire from what's happened with the London bond collapse, and also the peer-to-peer lending companies that have run into troubles that they have not really supervised well. So I would imagine they're going to be very careful when it comes to cryptocurrency, especially with all of the news that's going on right now around Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency. Funding Circle, and this is kind of old news, but I wanted to talk about it anyway. Funding Circle investors are set to receive £16 million from bad debt sales. So what they've done is packaged up a bunch of bad loans and then sold them to a debt collector. It's kind of unfortunate, but there comes to a point where bad loans are just, they're irrecoverable, and they sort of look at it, well, it's better to get something for these bad loans than nothing. So they package them up, sell them on to get paid for those packaged bad debt loans, and then repay investors. But what they get as far as how many pennies on the pound for those loans is questionable. And the debt collector then goes ahead and tries to recover some of those bad debts. We'll see what happens in the future on that. Hopefully investors will get paid back some of the money on that. Assets Capital has hired the Director of Lending Operations, Irene Thomas. So they continue to expand. Assets is really in that growth mode. Hang on one second. They continue to really grow, and I think that's one of the reasons why you see, if you look at their company accounts, they're not necessarily making big profits at the moment. They're taking on some losses, but they are continuing to expand, hiring people. Irene Thomas has more than 30 years experience in operational management, including including roles at Halifax Bank of Scotland, Freedom Finance, and Advantage Home Loans. Yeah, so they continue to put experienced people in places of leadership to make the operation better and to expand. So it's an interesting piece of news. Now we talk about, with peer-to-peer lending companies, I always am very adamant that companies stick to what they know and don't try to grow too fast, and I thought this piece of news was really relevant when it comes to that topic. Just As is trying to launch into the US next year. They will roll out its peer-to-peer lending in the US state by state, so in 2020. Lee Burkett, founder of eMoney Hub and parent company of Just As and sister company MoneyBrain, said that Just As is looking to capitalize on fintech bridges and has been onboarding with banks. Now, I think one of the reasons that Just As is doing that, they're seeing that the US is very fintech friendly, whereas the UK is sort of struggling in that area right now, partly because of these company failures. What concerns me about this is, Just As has a really small loan book. You can see here they've lent £14 million total, right? But now their total live loan book is only £5.17 million. So what I think is concerning about that is, would it not make more sense to stick to growing your business in the UK, whereas you're based there, this is the market and then once your loan book gets to a sizable amount, because a £5 million loan book is very small. If you look at LoanPad, 32 million, and LoanPad is a small lending company in the peer-to-peer world, but look at some of the other companies that have lent billions, Rate Setter and Funding Circle. assets capital has lent over £1 billion. So slightly concerning to me to see that a company would be trying to expand into a whole nother country when they have this tiny small loan book. So this is why I always say it's important to really pay attention to what these peer-to-peer companies are doing, because my dad always told me, he said, stick to what you know. Stick to what you know. And if you can't build a sizable loan book in the UK, what makes you think you're going to be able to do that in the US, which is a completely different market, absolutely different. So something to pay attention to if you're a just us investor. And we already talked about what's going on with what investors want to see in peer-to-peer lending platforms. Again, if you have questions or comments, put them in the comment section. We're going to do a Q&A at the end. Let's talk about what's going on in the crypto world. I know some of you do like to hear about this, and again, cryptocurrency, very, very new, only been really in existence for less than 10 years. And what's happening to the market is quite amazing if you think about it. So we had a news story this week about El Salvador becoming the first country to approve Bitcoin as legal currency. This is a huge deal. I mean, imagine that you've seen a currency of a digital asset that was created in the early 2010s now being approved in a country. Of course, El Salvador, how significant is it financially? Questionable, not particularly significant, but the fact that a country is approving Bitcoin as a legal currency when this thing is only 9 years old is, to me, was amazing. And some countries understand why they want to have decentralized digital currencies. Now, I've always been of the belief that the Bitcoin was never really designed to be something that you would pay for, and pay for products and services. And I don't know how successful this is going to be right now. I think Bitcoin has some growing to do when it comes to payment processing. It's very slow. It can take 10 minutes or longer to approve a transaction. So I'm not really sure how this is going to work. And then one of the other questions I had about this, well, they're saying that a lot of people in El Salvador don't have bank accounts. So I'm wondering, well, how are they going to buy Bitcoin if they don't have bank accounts, they don't have credit cards? So there's going to have to be a lot of education that goes on, a lot of financial education for these South American people on how to adopt this. And I'm sure that this is going to be a work in progress. This is not going to be something that happens very quickly as far as mass adoption. We can see that the president said the law would boost financial inclusion for the roughly 70% of Salvadorians who don't have bank accounts. So again, question, how do you buy and own Bitcoin if you don't have a bank account? That's something that I'm going to have to research, because I don't really understand that. And Bitcoin has become a lot easier to buy than it was 10 years ago or 7 years ago with Coinbase, now Binance, all these other platforms. But whether it's easy for people in different countries to buy and to particularly understand, I don't know. But it is important, because I think you're going to see other countries start to adopt this. I've said it before, I believe that there's other countries that are adding Bitcoin to their treasury. They are not announcing this because they want to keep the prices low. If they announce they're adding it to the treasury, but the price of Bitcoin will explode and go crazy, and then it becomes more costly for them to add more of it. So we'll see what happens with that. This is again, there's a lot of reasons why governments are paying attention to Bitcoin right now, and Bitcoin's a really kind of a small asset class still. There's a lot of attention on it right now, but it's still, today we're at $1.5 trillion, which in the grand scheme of global finance is relatively small. Gold is 10 times as big. But the governments, they're paying a lot of attention to this because they don't want a decentralized asset that they have no control over taking over. That's really the reason. Now, if you think about countries that are experiencing hyperinflation right now, and this is really why the argument for Bitcoin exists. We've got inflationary problems upcoming and stuff that we don't really pay that much attention to. We see it going on, but it's not something that we, or I feel necessarily I can do anything about, right? Government money printing macroeconomically is a huge big problem. It's happening in the UK, it's happening in the US. The printing continues. Let's look at the chart here. This is the UK national debt from April 1997 to 2021. Now, what I think is very interesting, if we look at the last 10 years, the UK debt was at 1.138 trillion in March of 2011, and now April 2021, we've doubled to 2.17 trillion pounds in national debt. So what's happening? We're having this big disconnect between revenue that's bringing in through tax and money that's being spent by the government. And the US absolutely has a huge problem with this, much bigger. If we look at the UK national debt right now, and this is in dollars, this is about 2.7 trillion pounds, $3.6 trillion. In the US, we see it's a much bigger problem, $28.3 trillion. The money printing machine just continues and continues and continues. Now, how do you stop that? How do you stop that? Here's the deficit right here. If you look, hopefully you can see that. Maybe I can zoom in a little bit here. Let's see. Right up here, where my mouse is, you can see this deficit, right? This is the US federal budget deficit. So $3.2 trillion per year deficit. So they're spending, the US government is spending 6.7 trillion with all this money printing going on. And the IRS, the Inland Revenue Service, is only bringing in $3.2 trillion. Again, happening in the UK. I don't care where you live. This is happening in most countries. And this is the reason why Bitcoin is so important, because there has to be something that's separated from the government. Government's biggest fear is losing control of their currency. They need to control their currency. They pretty much controlling gold at the moment because of how much they own. If you see in the US right now, and I like to use the US because the US is kind of a barometer of what's going on in the world economically. We have so many, companies in the US that are big deal, like the FANGs, the Facebook, the Amazons, the Googles, the Apples, based in the US. And if the US stock market collapses, then world stock markets tend to follow. We've seen it time and time again. So we need to pay attention to what's going on in the US because of that. Things you would think, if you looked at the news, you would think economically everything is good, right? Everything is going hunky-dory. The problem is, if we look at the unemployment numbers, there's official unemployed 9.7 million in the US, right? And the US workforce is 151 million people. Actual unemployed, 16.5 million. So a little bit over 10% of actual unemployment. This is marginally attached workers and part-time people who are part-time employed. So economically, do you think that the economy is doing really well? It's not. It's absolutely not. It's being propped up by the government. So how do they get rid of this deficit? How does the UK get rid of this 2.5 trillion pounds of debt and this huge deficit that's happening all the time? There's really only two ways. Actually, there's really only one way. They increase taxes, and the tax increases would actually have to be huge to get that number down. Or the other thing is they just keep on propping it up with money printing. And the problem right now is the governments, they can't turn off these money printers now. Especially in the US, it's just been so propped up. The stock market's propped up by money printing. The US government is buying bonds on the stock market, a complete propping up of the bond side of the stocks and the ETFs. It's a big problem, and this is why having a decentralized currency and digital asset like Bitcoin is so important. This is what a lot of people don't understand. The fundamentals have not changed about Bitcoin. Yes, the volatility is there, of course. It's a new asset class. I mean, how many times through history have you seen something that's only 9 years old being introduced as a new asset class in the country. It's never happened before. This is kind of a revolution of a way to store value. Yes, it will absolutely be volatile. You will see drops of 30 or 40%. But in the long run, the fundamentals of Bitcoin have not changed. And, I talk about Bitcoin a lot, and I want to show you that I put my money where my mouth is. I believe that this is going to be the future, and I've been buying. Hopefully you can see this, but I've been buying Bitcoin during this dip. I think it's a great price point to come in. I bought 0.6 of a Bitcoin on June 7th, back when the price was I don't remember. 24,000, just under 25,000 pounds, and then continued to buy it all the way through 22,538 pounds. This is what I have in the portfolio currently. It's just small. I have a bigger position than this, but it's not sat inside this wallet right here. But I wanted to show you, that this is a good price point to buy. Do I think it's going to go lower than 22,000 UK pounds? Absolutely. I think it could. I think it could go down to 18. In fact, I have buy orders in here for open orders here at 19,225 pounds and 18,550 pounds to continue to buy. So just paying attention to what's going on with these national debt figures, I think is very, very important. It's important to have an understanding of why Bitcoin exists and understand that a lot of the news stories that are coming out are really designed to disconnect retail investors from Bitcoin. The government has no interest in you owning something that they have zero control over, because then they cannot control the currency. And then, remember this, every time a pound or a dollar is getting printed, it's devaluing your fiat currency of the pound or the dollar. It's a bad place to be. We're going to see inflation really start to take over in the next year. I see it happening. We've seen some big inflation rises. We've seen countries that are in hyperinflation, and don't think that that couldn't happen to a first world country, because I totally think it can. I don't think it's going to be as bad as something that's happened in a country like Venezuela right now. But, you could see inflation rates that getting in 5, 6, 7%. It's very, very possible. And the government is doing really nothing to help out this problem other than print money. And that's why it's important to own things like Bitcoin. And for, there's a lot of naysayers. Of course, there will be a lot of naysayers. But let's look at the price of what's happened. We've seen this dip. A lot of people are nervous about what's going on. And honestly, we've seen times where Bitcoin has taken these drops, 16,000 down to 4,000, and it's taken a while for it to recover. And, it can take a year before you see any movement. Right now, we're sort of in this sideways pattern. I think we're going to continue. But look at this. From October 1st, when the price was 10,000 US dollars, up to a $28,000 price point, took 2 months. So for anybody that's buying and holding that's worried about these price dips, just remember that the price of this asset can increase parabolically very quickly. So we saw from 23,000 all the way up to 62,000 in a period of just a few months. So am I concerned about the price of Bitcoin? Absolutely not. I would continue. If it dropped down to 3,000 US dollars, I would back up my bank account truck and buy as much as I possibly could, because we're going to have some severe problems with inflation coming up, with government money printing. So, the governments do not want you to really own this, I believe. And then, one of the other things that I want to address is this constant narrative about climate. This was a news story that I found to be funny. The Bitcoin bubble will pop when investors recognize Bitcoin's huge negative impact on the climate. Okay, so El Salvador, for instance, is talking about harnessing the power of their volcanoes to mine Bitcoin. But honestly, we're talking about a $1.6 trillion asset that's under so much scrutiny. Why is that? What I would be more concerned about stories like Volkswagen going all electric. Okay, the biggest car maker in the world by 2026 going all electric. But yet, no talk about what a terrible impact this has on the the climate. You know, using millions and millions of electric cars that are likely not going to be powered by solar. They're going to be plugged in and they're going to be charged through electric sockets. This is a huge problem, but it doesn't get talked about, nor does gold mining and the massive amounts of emissions that go on through gold mining and the banking system, people using their computers at home. This is all narrative that, again, has been put into place to really depress the price of Bitcoin because, again, governments do not want you to own something that they have no control over because that puts them in a very defensive position economically. So very interesting story. Let's see. Bank regulators plan conservative capital rule for Bitcoin. Of course, banks, now they're saying banks must set aside enough capital to cover losses on any Bitcoin holdings, and banking regulators are coming together to try to put some controls on it. The IMF sees legal and economic issues with El Salvador Bitcoin move. Of course, the IMF does because, again, Bitcoin moves decentralized, so it moves control away from the IMF. You're going to see a lot of news stories like this coming out designed to scare people who retail. And then in the Motley Fool, if you're going to buy cryptocurrency, this is the first coin you should buy. They're talking about crypto. They're talking about Bitcoin being the original cryptocurrency that's still the safest bet. Of course, safe is a word that should be used very delicately. Any investment is not necessarily safe, so there are always risks involved, and you should definitely not follow what I do. This is just my own personal belief, and I share information about what I know. They have some really interesting companies in here. Jack Dorsey of Square is all in on Bitcoin. He's going to be creating a hardware wallet, and other countries will follow suit to El Salvador. I think El Salvador is probably the start of the Latin American adoption of Bitcoin, and that's really going to change other countries, outside of Latin America and how they look at Bitcoin. But yes, it's always been a goal for me to own, just to have some of it, just as really a hedge against inflation. I think it's going to happen. I think our own currency is really going to get devalued because of what's going on with the spending. Here's the national debt clock of the UK. This is pretty interesting. I don't know, again, how accurate this is. I think it's somewhat accurate. I think this number's higher. It's probably closer to 2.8 billion. Trillion. Right now we're at 2.5 trillion, and it's growing. It says here at a rate of 5,170 pounds per second. And this is going to come home to roost for the taxpayer eventually. You can see here the debt per taxpayer, 69,692 pounds. Debt per citizen, 40,518 pounds. Definitely coming home to roost when, I don't know, you can see the UK debt right here, how it's, again, really come up from 2009, 2010, from 12 up to, this is the US, 28 trillion, 12 trillion. So we've had a double in the last 10 years. It's a big problem. So it's a big problem. And also lastly, and then we'll get to some comments. This is an article, it's a little bit older, but I want to talk about government wastage of why, these government debt is so high. The governments waste money. Here's a story about 26 billion pounds wasted on computer blunders in the UK. The biggest waste was a 12.7 billion pound plan for the NHS to start using electronic records. So when the governments get your tax money, they're not using it efficiently either. They're spending it on ridiculous things and they're wasting it, and then that becomes a deficit. 18 billion pounds wasted on ID cards that you don't even want. 5 billion wasted on a bad gold sale. 17 billion wasted on unnecessary high-speed rail link. This is funny. 57 million pounds wasted on benefits for dead people. In 2006, they made a mistake of paying out money to people that weren't even alive, and some of that was fraudulent cases. But again, you can see the point here. A lot of wastage. Governments don't really use the money that they get in tax revenue effectively. So another reason why you might want to consider owning something like Bitcoin is a separation and decentralized store of value asset. So yeah, that was my rant today. I was on a bit of a rant because I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed at all of these news stories that are coming out, and especially I'm so tired of hearing about the climate impact of Bitcoin. This, how it's going to kill the climate, right? And it's not. It's been debunked so many times. We call that FUD news. It's news that's designed to throw off retail investors from investing in something that's a new asset class that they're scared of, and it's designed to put a lot of fear into people's hearts. So that's my rant today. Again, if you're gonna subscribe to the channel, if you haven't, I think we have about 407 subscribers. We're just trying to get back to that 1,000 subscriber goal that I hit with the old channel that was banned because I was a bad boy talking about giving away Bitcoin on the channel. Let's get your comments and questions here. Annabelle says, just heard an interview on Spanish radio with chat from fellow funders, which appeared to be a Spanish version of peer-to-peer. I wonder if you've heard of them. No, I have not heard of them at all. I don't think it's peer-to-peer from what I've heard before, but I don't really know much about them. See what else you got here for me. Paul News has money in LoanPad with no problems. Good, Paul. Absolutely. Yeah, appreciate the thumbs up. Paul likes the daily interest payments. Absolutely. I think daily interest is one really big advantage. Dave says, very pleased with Kuflinks, but better rates elsewhere. Yeah. But diversification, I think, again, is important. Oh, one other thing, too, that I wanted to mention, and I think I've been getting a lot of emails from new peer-to-peer lending investors who are concerned because of the collapses. I think a really good strategy is if you're in peer-to-peer lending and you're invested through a company, not necessarily to roll in your interest and capital, but to withdraw it. And the reason for doing that is if you can withdraw enough capital, or not capital, but just your interest. If you can withdraw enough interest to where it covers what you originally invested, then you're kind of on house money at that point. And that's something that I've been doing with companies like LendingWorks. It was something I was doing with MoneyThing before it went down, and it's something I've done with Assets Capital, is to take out enough interest to where my original investment has been covered. So if something does happen to that company, it goes down, then my losses are really not that bad. So worst comes to worst, I get zero. If I've made zero interest on my money over the period of time that I was invested through those peer-to-peer lending companies, much better case scenario than rolling all of my money over and over and over into it, and then it, for some reason it fails. And there is a possibility that any company can fail, not just peer-to-peer lending, but any investment. That we've seen it happen in the stock market, we've seen it happen in peer-to-peer lending and other things. So if you're going to withdraw enough interest to cover what you originally invested in your capital-wise, you're in a really good position, and then your risk becomes way more reduced. It's going to take some time to do that. And then what it also does is show some time history that a company can operate in the correct way over a period of time, because it is going to take you a while to get interest out to cover your capital contribution, but it shows that operational history that I think is so important. So, and I do this with LoanPad too. I take out interest every month to cover, try to reduce my risk and what I put in capital wise, and that's the goal. So I thought it was an interesting thing to mention. Hi, Darren in Cambridge. Nice to see you. Philip says he dipped his toe into Assets Exchange after last week's stream. Site takes a bit of understanding. Yeah, we had Peter Reed from Assets Exchange on the stream last week, who was gracious enough to answer questions. So if you're interested in that, you can go to the YouTube channel and watch that interview. Invested with Kuflink so far so good. Yeah, the one thing I really want Kuflink to change is their dashboard. I really don't like their dashboard, and I've told Narendra that, Harry over there. I just think it's not very user friendly, but maybe that's just me. Tell me what you think. Do you think Kuflink has a user friendly dashboard? Hi Tony in Taunton and Somerset. Annabelle said, just had to pull cash from Kuflink. No new investments coming on offer. When they do, they're snapped up immediately. Fed up waiting to reinvest. I understand. Hi Dan in Hayfield in Derbyshire. John Day is in Nottingham. Nottingham. Alan said, well done to Kuflink for allowing self-select loans in their IFISA. Absolutely understood. I think that's a good thing. Has anyone tested the liquidity on Assets Exchange? I have not. Anybody with simple crowdfunding? Are their loans attractive risk to reward? I don't know anything about simple crowdfunding. Tony, Propland has some large projects on the go at the moment. Anyone had a good bad experiences? I'm not an investor in Propland, but again, I've been to visit them before, and I think that they seem to be on the up and up and have some good prospects in the investment side. Yeah, Bitcoin is legal tender in El Salvador now. It's here to stay, folks. Yeah, I think El Salvador is just a test case. I think it's you're going to see other countries come on board. So somebody had to be the first, right? AccuChap said Dogecoin is now on Coinbase as of today. Yeah, the meme coin that's gone ridiculously high in its cap size. I own a little bit of Doge just for transparency purposes, not much. I bought it when it was I think it was 3 or 4 US cents. Chica Boy is here. Nice to see you, Chica Boy. Welcome to the stream. Saw in the news India may change its mind on Bitcoin and allow it. Yeah, I think once you see other countries come on board, you're going to see some reversals. It's not surprising to see one country say no one day and then change their mind a week later. Of all the YouTubers I have listened to this week, not one has mentioned what El Salvador's current currency is. It is the US dollar. Yeah, I don't know why they haven't mentioned it. Chica Boy got COVID. I'm better now. Well, I hope you're feeling better. Yeah, it will be adopted. I fully expect by the end of the year, you're going to have a handful of companies which will accept payment, not necessarily just crypto, Bitcoin, but other types of cryptocurrency. I think you'll see Cardano, you'll see Stellar Lumens come in, you're going to see Polkadot, and maybe Polygon. What would happen if these countries with massive debt declared bankruptcy? You would have a complete total economic meltdown and they'd have to be bailed out. It's not a good thing. They'll just keep printing. They won't go bankrupt. They'll keep printing and inflation will increase. I mean, you've already seen it. The petrol prices here in the US have gone up. They're at $2.15 I think a year ago. Don't quote me on that, but they're approaching $3 right now. We see oil, by the way, oil barrel over $70 a barrel now. As I said, I think oil, if you're looking at places to invest in the stock market, oil is going to be pretty good, I think. Not financial advice. will not be talking about the vid situation. I think that's a way to get the channel banned. Derby says, I cannot wait for the next crypto winter. I missed the first three, yeah. It could happen, we don't know when. I think you're gonna keep on seeing more and more of this news come out that it's very positive. Brian says, I'd worry about any investment that could collapse on a single tweet from Elon. Look, I think that Elon could collapse probably some stocks too if he started talking about those. He has a huge following on social media, almost 60 million people. Just like the Wall Street bets, people can manipulate the price of stocks. Elon, yes, he's been able to manipulate, he can manipulate any investment. He can manipulate Tesla's investment just by making a bad statement or comment. You're always going to have that. You're always going to have that. Lawrence, in crypto, do you have any idea of the difference between USDT and USDC? Do you have a preference to hold if you trade, or do you just hodl? Personally, I don't have any of those coins. I've never really seen the purpose of holding them for me, because I just buy and hold I just use fiat currency and just buy and hold the Bitcoin. Robert Page says, I'm up on Bitcoin thanks to Lawrence's referral incentive. Short term though. You must not have much, because I think the referral was like, like 70 pounds on 77 pounds. Looking into Binance at the moment, I hold a few cryptos on there, but on USDT and USDC. Yeah, you can stake those and get interest on them. There's some pretty large staking rewards too if you really want to take some risks. Lender is a good way to do it peer-to-peer. You can stake people that are trading cryptocurrency, but you can stake things like Cardano, you can stake Ethereum and get 6, 7, 8% interest. There's some other coins that are paying ridiculous amounts of interest for staking, but again, I'd be very, very wary. Some of them are paying 18 to 20%. I'm down on Bitcoin due to going in at the wrong time. I'm hanging on though to the moon, as the crazy cats say. Yeah, I mean, look, if you're looking at Bitcoin as a short-term thing, I wouldn't bother. It's not a short-term thing, because you'll never know when the bottom is. We could see a bottom of 20,000 US dollars or lower. So David said, if you take your interest out of LoanPad at 4%, why not take 25 years to get all your capital out? Yeah, it would with that one, because the interest rate is low. But just remember, every time you make an interest payment out, it's reducing your amount of capital and therefore reducing your risks, even if it's a small amount. So, but I've been doing some of the platforms for several years, so I've managed to get out quite a decent amount of interest. And Donald Trump did make cryptocurrency dump this week, and he's of course he wants control via the US dollar. He's a government guy. It's a government guy. Mike says simple crowdfunding is under FCA restriction and closed to new business, as far as I understand. Okay, so that's going to do it this week. Hope you enjoyed the stream. Again, subscribe to the channel. We'll be back next Thursday, and we're going to have Mike Bristow from Crowd Property is going to be our next live stream guest. I forgot the date. I think it's early July, but I'll let you know. It's in a couple of weeks. So mark your calendars. I will send out notification if you are not in the Facebook group too, the Financial Thing Facebook group. Just, why is that on there? Get that out. Peter is not here. Join the group. Just Google Financial Thing Facebook group. Come join us and sign up for the email list on financialthing.com. It is very, very easy to join if you're not on the list. I do send out lots of value on there about peer-to-peer lending and other things, and I'll show you how you can sign up. Just go to the website financialthing.com, and right down here there's this little box here that says top 5 peer-to-peer lending sites revealed. You can put in your email and your first name and get added to the list and get lots of great information from Financial Thing. And also I've done some updating to the reviews. Lending Works review, Kuflink review, Rate Setter review has all been updated. Working on doing the reviews for the other ones. Also we'll be doing Able Rate and some other companies. So that is going to do it. Thank you again to everybody for joining me. We'll see you next Thursday. Have a wonderful week and a wonderful weekend. Stay safe out there, and blessings. Take care. See you soon. Bye.